Just the other day, Nick Saban came out and said that Alabama had a rebuilding year in 2021. A rebuilding year where the Crimson Tide won 13 games, had a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense, had the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, a rebuilding season where they won the SEC and were the national runner-up. Yeah, a rebuilding year. Look, if last year was a rebuilding year, fine. But if that was the case, Alabama is about to put the fear of God into everyone that they play in 2022. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys, ready to break down, analyze, and predict Alabama's schedule and record for this upcoming college football season. Again, a season that is no longer a rebuilding year for Alabama. No, they're much better now. But that's actually the fact, guys, is that last year Alabama was 13-2. They made the national championship before falling to Georgia. And that Alabama team that was so good last year is going to be even better now in 2022. You take a look at the numbers, guys, brought to you by College Football Encyclopedia. They returned 67% of their production from last year. That's 50th in the nation. This is an Alabama team, guys, that last year was 7th on offense, 7th on defense. They returned Bryce Young, the Heisman winner at quarterback, after he threw for 47 touchdowns, over 4,800 yards, and just 7 interceptions. And Nick Saban, I think, did a phenomenal job utilizing the transfer portal on both sides of the ball. He added Jahmyr Gibbs at running back from Georgia Tech, a guy who, yes, will be a threat in the ground game, but maybe he's an even bigger threat in the passing game. He added Jermaine Burton, the wide receiver transfer from Georgia, Tyler Harrell, a wide receiver transfer from Louisville, to add to that wide receiver core that was going to be solid enough as it was, but might have been the weak point on offense. You look at the defense, guys, they returned 7 starters, a defense that was 4th versus the run last year, and returns DJ Dale on the defensive line, arguably the best defensive playmaker in the country, and Will Anderson at linebacker, a guy who had 34.5 tackles for a loss last year and 17.5 sacks. Henry To'o returns to the linebacking core as well. Jordan Battle is back in the secondary, and Eli Ricks is in the secondary now, transferring in from LSU. This Alabama team, guys, from top to bottom, offense and defense, is loaded. And I don't know if there's a single team in the country that can take them down. But we take a look at their schedule, guys. It actually is pretty favorable. Only a few tough games on the schedule for Alabama that is now on their quest to get back to the national championship game and this time win it. They open the season up against Utah State, a team that won 11 games last year, won the Mountain West Conference. Not going to be an easy game for Alabama by any means, but one they're going to win. Again, from a size, speed, skill, coaching, everything standpoint, Alabama owns that edge. But Utah State has the potential to maybe put up 10 to 14 points on the Crimson Tide here. 1-0 for Alabama, then they go on the road to Texas. And this is going to be a fun game for so many different reasons. I mean, you've got 2 historic programs facing off in Austin. You've got the Steve Sarkisian effect. Obviously, Sarkisian being the offensive coordinator at Alabama just a few years ago. So another Nick Saban versus a former assistant matchup here. This is a rematch of the national championship game back from 2009. Alabama and Texas met out at the Rose Bowl, and the Crimson Tide won that game, their first national title under Nick Saban. Quinn Ewers, Bijan Robinson, and Xavier Worthy are one of the top 3 playmakers, one of the top trios in the country this year. So that's going to be a very difficult thing for Alabama to overcome. But again, Alabama's defense is legit, guys. Maybe even better than they were last year. I mean, keep in mind, last year they were 7th in the entire country. Texas, their problem, guys, while their offense should take off and be better, while they do have home field advantage, I don't have a lot of faith in their defense to fix a lot of the issues they had last year, especially not by week 2, and especially not against what will be one of the better offenses in the entire country. So despite the game being in Austin, I believe Alabama does win this game over Texas, one of the more marquee matchups of the year, especially early in the year, but the Crimson Tide win this game by at least 10 points. They'll take down ULM with ease. They'll take down Vanderbilt with ease. No worries there. So they're 4-0. Their first, to me, true test is on the road at Arkansas. Texas, yes, is a test for sure, but if you're looking for the toughest test so far, it's going to be this road game at Arkansas. And I'm going to tell you right now that I genuinely believe that if Alabama is going to lose a regular season game, it's going to come in Fayetteville on October 1st. That's what I think. I think if Alabama is to slip up in the regular season, it will come on October 1st at Arkansas. Last year, the Tide and the Razorbacks had an amazing game. 42-35 victory for Alabama. These two trading shot for shot. Arkansas making headlines with that amazing fake field goal that kept them in that game late, of Alabama's defense holding strong in the end. Arkansas, though, has not beaten Alabama since 2006. They have not defeated the Crimson Tide since 2006, and that's unbelievable. This Arkansas team, guys, is solid. Great quarterback in KJ Jefferson, very good trio of running backs, but will they have much success against an Alabama run defense that, again, was 4th nationally last year? And again, can really more than anything, can Arkansas's defense, especially in the secondary, stop Bryce Young? The Razorbacks last year couldn't stop Alabama for anything. If they'd been able to force 1 or 2 stops, they could have won that game in Tuscaloosa. But the secondary wasn't able to do it. I just don't have faith in Arkansas' secondary to do it again. I don't have their faith in their secondary to shut down Bryce Young, despite the game being in Fayetteville. This game will be close, just like it was last year. It will come down to the wire, just like it did last year. But ultimately, Alabama will defeat the Razorbacks. And it's one of those games where I can't pick Arkansas to beat Alabama and end that streak until they actually do it. But ultimately, I still believe Alabama is the better team in all aspects. So Alabama gets a close win over Arkansas. They survive their big scare. Then they come back home to take on Texas A&M. We all know about this game. Not only did Texas A&M beat Alabama in 2021, beating the Crimson Tide 41-38, this offseason we saw a big-time feud between Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban. So everybody has circled this game as the must-see game of the year. Not just in the SEC, but in the nation, Alabama A&M, this is the game you have to watch. And I'm here to tell you that you can turn this game off at halftime, because Alabama will absolutely destroy Texas A&M. They will murder Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies. And I feel very confident about that. You are dealing with an Alabama team that is going to be better than they were last year in Tuscaloosa with a pissed off Nick Saban after revenge on their mind. If that wasn't enough, it's the feud that they're dealing with from this offseason. And they're all saying, yeah, we swept it under the rug, we're fine. But no, they haven't. And if the coaches want to say they've forgotten about it, which they haven't, the players definitely have not forgotten about it. Alabama in Tuscaloosa will annihilate Texas A&M, just like they've done in Tuscaloosa just about every single year since the last time they lost there back in, 2012? Alabama will win comfortably over the Aggies, and I feel very confident about that. You are dealing with an angry Nick Saban here, guys. Revenge from the loss from last year, revenge from the allegations and the accusations from Jimbo Fisher, and it goes both ways. But Alabama, Nick Saban will win in a big way. And I feel very, very confident about that. This game will not live up to the hype that people think. The storylines will be great all week. Alabama will dominate, and it will be over by halftime or midway through the third quarter. So the Crimson Tide, guys, are now 6-0. They're going bowling, but that's not where they're wanting to go, right? They get another tough game at Tennessee. Another trap game is going to test this secondary. Alabama's secondary last year, that was probably their weak point, ranking 50th versus the pass. But they still beat Tennessee 52-24 last year. And while Tennessee's passing attack, led by Hendon Hooker, is going to be very, very good and very tough to stop, Alabama, once again, will own that significant defensive edge, at least in the front seven. And offensively, I think they're going to torch Tennessee's defense, a Tennessee defense that I just don't think is quite there yet. Keep in mind, Tennessee is very similar to Arkansas. Tennessee has not defeated Alabama since 2006, and we just can't pick the Volunteers to win this game until they actually do it. Home field advantage will help. I think it's closer than it was last year. 52-24, it will be closer, but Tennessee will ultimately fall and Alabama will move to 7-0. They'll beat Mississippi State. They beat them by 40 last year. Nick Saban doesn't struggle with the air raid, guys. And, after the games against Arkansas and Tennessee, they'll have been tested against the pass. Mississippi State, especially in Tuscaloosa, won't be much of a challenge there. So, again, they win that game going into the month of November, which is pretty favorable. LSU, Ole Miss, Austin Peay, Auburn. We'll go through them quickly. LSU. Last year, they only beat the Tigers 20-14. Now they're going into Death Valley. But LSU has a lot of questions, right? New head coach in Brian Kelly. We're not quite sure who the quarterback's going to be. It could be Miles Brennan. It could be Garrett Nussmeier. It could be Jaden Daniels. We're not quite sure. And LSU, their major weakness right now, the secondary. Doesn't bode well when you get the Heisman Trophy winner back at quarterback. So even though the game is in Death Valley, I don't think Brian Kelly, a guy who never had much success against Alabama, Nick Saban, during his time at Notre Dame, don't think he has success against them now in Death Valley. So Alabama beats LSU on the road. They then go back on the road to take on Ole Miss, a team they beat 42-21 last year, and actually a score to me that looks better and closer than the game really was. Alabama dominated that game from start to finish. Ole Miss might have their best team yet under Lane Kiffin. It's just going to be a matter of how quickly all those transfers start to gel together. But even though the game is in Oxford, I still don't have faith in Ole Miss's defense to shut it down. The offense has the capability to hang with Alabama. The defense, I don't think so. Alabama beats the Rebels. They beat Austin Peay. And I do believe they beat Auburn. Yes, it's the Iron Bowl. Yes, anything can happen. We almost saw it last year. Alabama only winning 24-22 in 4 overtimes. Bama needed, that 98-yard drive to tie the game and send it to overtime to keep their playoff hopes alive, and they did it. They did it. And now you're dealing with an Auburn team that, again, went 6-7 last year, has coaching questions with Brian Harsin, a lot of offseason drama with them, and really their only strength is going to be running the ball, I feel like. Running the ball and strength in the trenches. Alabama has strength in the trenches. They know how to stop the run, and I just don't have faith in Auburn's offense to hang with Alabama. They're not going to be able to hang with Bryce Young, especially back in Tuscaloosa. Last year was too close for comfort for Alabama in the Iron Bowl. Nick Saban will make sure that's not nearly as close this year. So with all that being said, guys, we have Alabama going 12-0. Their toughest test for me, the road game at Arkansas, maybe the road game at Tennessee. Those are the only 2 games that I can maybe see Alabama slipping up on. This team is way too good, though, guys, for that to happen. Still have the best coach in the country in Nick Saban. Still have loads of talent, not just returning from last year, 67% of it, but also tons from the transfer portal. Alabama, like we said at the beginning, is going to put the fear of God into their opponents every single week. 12-0 will get them to the SEC championship game. Regardless of what happens there, they'll be back in the college football playoff. And then the million-dollar question will be, can Alabama get redemption and win the entire playoff and win another national championship for Nick Saban? So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Make sure you check those out and sign up for those today. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.